Hi, this is Peter Tanella, the chair of the National Veterinary Law Group. I'm joined today by my good friend, Monica Dixon Perry, who is the director of veterinary consulting with Burzenski and Co. Monica, it's good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Peter.
Yeah, thanks for joining me today. Um, so Monica, just before we hopped on here, I was just saying to you how surprised I was about the length of time you've been in the veterinary industry. I saw almost you're approaching 40 years.
Yes, yep. Just
Yeah.
celebrated 39 years this past October. So, yes, it makes me feel a whole lot older than
You
I
look great
want
for
to.
29 years. I don't know how the math works, but 29 years old and you're doing 39 in there. Um, tell me about what your role is, at Burzinski and how you help veterinarians and how you got started from the
Sure.
beginning to where you are now. It's a great story.
Sure. Well, I've been with Brzezinski. It'll be 3 years, March of 2025. And I obviously am a management consultant. But prior to that, I started in the veterinary industry part time after school as a receptionist. And then when I went off to college at UNC Chapel Hill, I continued to work part time as a receptionist. And after graduating, having no idea how I was going to use my biology degree, I actually ended up going back to the veterinary hospital that I worked at while in high school. And by that time, the practice had grown from a one doctor practice to a three doctor practice. And Dr. Gail Bowman needed a practice manager. So I joined her team, helped grow that practice from three doctors. We had about 15 or 20 employees. And 11 years later, that practice had gotten up to 9 DBM, 7 day a week Eastern Western practice with close to 100 employees, and was promoted from practice manager to hospital administrator. And then after being a CVPM for a number of years, I would say that it was probably just the natural progression of my career, that I was approached by Mark Opperman of VMC Incorporated and joined his firm in 2006 as a management consultant, and was with Mark and Sheila for about 15 years, made partner, had a wonderful ride. And then COVID hit. I stepped down from partnership and worked with MVP Mission Vet Partners, one of the consolidators, for about a year and a half, and missed consulting. So Gary Glassman and I with Burzenski Company had known each other since the 90s, and an opportunity opened up, and lo and behold, I was back to my roots of veterinary management consultant and absolutely loved it.
It's a lot to unpack there. First of all, you mentioned Chapel Hill, and I know you're a diehard
Oh,
Chapel
yeah.
Hill fan. So I guess not to digress, well, I looked and well, they ranked they're 10 so far, right? Early in the season. What's your prediction for Chapel Hill?
Oh, well, as long as they beat Duke, it doesn't matter.
That's all that matters to the end. That's
Yes,
great.
that's all that matters.
Uh, no, you were telling me, a lot of our clients, when I ask them, well, geez, how'd you get started in the industry? And it seems like it's almost a calling for them. It, early in their, careers, 12 years old, I knew it soon, at some point in time in their life, they said, there was a calling. And you had indicated, you started early on in your teens. I mean,
Yes.
did you know this was something? I guess you started working in the industry at that early age, and would you started a passion for it, I guess, at an early age.
Well, I would say that my love for animals, my mom has really severe allergies even to this day. So I was one of those kids that couldn't have a pet. My dad did go out and purchase a cockatiel bird when we lived in California, and that was the only pet that I had. So for
Hmm.
me to end up in veterinary medicine, you know, probably most people wouldn't think along those lines, but I think the way that it's been described about leadership, I probably innately was born with those raw materials. I love people, I love managing. And even my grandmother said when I was very young, she was like, I know that one day you're going to be managing people because you're so bossy. So whatever. But, lo and behold, I would say that I had no idea what my professional path would look like. But I do know that when I was in eighth grade, my father looked at my curriculum and he said, "Oh, there's a public speaking and debate class, and you're going to take that." And of course, as an eighth grader, I was like, "No, I don't want to." And he said, "I don't know when, I don't know where, but at some point, your voice needs to be heard. And we want to make sure that you're articulate and you can, defend your, recommendations or opinions or whatever the case may be." So not realizing that all of that was coming together, even as early as, eighth grade. My father's job actually had us move around the country. I've been in 17 different schools, plus college over the years, and moved from the East Coast, Midwest, West Coast, and having to interact with, new people, new cultures, all those type things, I honestly think have prepared me exactly, to be successful in what I do today, because I meet strangers every day. I public, with public speaking, have to speak at conferences, nationally, internationally. So, I do believe I'm a strong believer of faith. And I do believe that my path was mapped out, not knowing that it would end up in veterinary medicine, but very grateful that it has ended up this way. So.
Right. And it seems like your dad had a vision for you. Your voice needs to be heard, and boy, is it heard. I mean, you talk about it, I know you say it very lightly. Yeah, you travel and you speak, but I mean, I know obviously you're a prominent speaker on the circuit, and you do speak throughout the country and internationally. I know you just mentioned earlier you're heading to Acapulco later, this month that you're going?
Yes.
For your final speaking engagement this year before you get a well-needed rest, and then you hop back on again next year.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I am truly blessed and grateful. I would say that my introduction to vet med wasn't by mistake. I think it was a plan. One of our last moves was back to Raleigh, North Carolina, and we moved into this neighborhood, and it's just so happened that we moved into, we're on the same street as Dr. Gail Bowman, and I started babysitting her two oldest boys when I was 12. And at some point she decided to open a veterinary hospital, and called my mom up one night and said, "Can Monica work after school as a receptionist?" So I don't, of all the places that we could have relocated back to, and moving into a neighborhood that just landed us on the exact same street that would, start my veterinary career. I don't think that was a mistake by any means.
Right.
Yeah.
Being involved, and I know you said you always had a passion for consulting, and now you found that again, obviously, working with Burzenski and Gary. What do you see in the practice? All of us who work in the industry obviously see a big shortage of veterinarians, and this staff in general is a big issue. I always say it's like the big white elephant in the room for all of our practices across the country. What do you see as you're going into your practices that you're working with is one of the biggest challenges on a day-to-day basis that listeners here would be surprised about, if there is a surprise?
Yeah. Well, I would say that it's not so much a surprise, because many other industries are challenged with being able to find quality help. So there is a shortage in that regard. But I think it's a commitment to this industry that I hope to encourage people to think about. This is an absolutely phenomenal industry. We've been called recession-proof, pandemic resilient. But in the veterinary industry, we have a hard time with change. And I think that there needs to be a paradigm shift in the way that we take care of our clients and our patients. There is no way that I could probably staff the practice that I used to manage with nearly 100 people in this day and age. So what do you have to do? You have to think of a different way of how you're checking in people, checking out people. Otherwise, I feel like it's a square peg into a round hole. And what I'm encouraging people to do is to think about team utilization. I think we need to do a better job of leveraging the healthcare team members that we do have. And with all of the advances in technology, I wholeheartedly believe that practices have to use technology on a level that they probably never ever thought that they would, from online booking of appointments, using platforms that will allow electronic communications to assist our clients and obviously the healthcare team. So just how we go about caring for patients and clients, I think that's a challenge because we're still trying to do it the way that we've done it for decades. And
Right.
I think it would be a detriment to this wonderful profession if we do not think outside the box and pursue things differently.
How do you help your clients make that transition? You talk with them about it, you coach them
Yep.
on it. And what I find one of the most difficult things for our clients is just like for all of us, time. There's not enough of
Yes.
it.
Yes.
When I'm working on a transaction with a client, in the very early stages, I'll tell them, you're going to need you to be a part of this transaction. And in the back of my mind, my team knows, fully aware that the client is working full time too. And maybe if they're, they're an owner looking to sell, they're managing a staff. So time. So talking about, team utilization, technology, where I guess, who are you getting in front of, or how do you carve that out in order to kind of maximize those skill sets to assist the client
Right.
and alleviate that
Well,
concern? I just don't have time to do that.
right. So there are a couple ways that we go about this. As a management consultant, I do what are called on-site consultations. So I have a chance to, visit a practice, and I'm there, for a few days, and I can get a true sense of the practice's personality, look at how the team is being utilized. It's almost like a doctor performing a comprehensive physical exam, examining
Hmm.
the pet from head to tail. That's what I do when I'm on site. So I'm able to see how things are flowing, and then being able to make recommendations as to how they can enhance team utilization and incorporate technology if they don't have those things. And then on the Burzenski is a veterinary exclusive accounting firm. So obviously, a big component of how I work with Gary as a CPA is that on probably 90% of the financial calls. And as Gary is going through the financials, our ultimate goal is always to help our practices increase their revenue, decrease their expenses to increase their bottom line or profitability. So as Gary is going through the numbers, I'm looking at things from an operational standpoint. I think the value of how Gary and I work together is that as a CPA, the tax planning, keeping our clients compliant with the IRS, that's his role. And then mine, we are able to intertwine as we're working together on, these are the things that you need to do from the numbers perspective, the data perspective. And then on the operational side, I'll obviously make recommendations to help guide them. And, sometimes if there's a strong enough management team, they can try to incorporate those things on their own. If not, I provide not only on-site consultations, but remote services. I absolutely love coaching and mentoring managers. We have some very green managers that are embarking upon the industry. And then we do have the CVPMs or the MBAs. But I like to meet managers, practices where they are. I never want to, make someone feel little or they don't know. I love the ability to meet a practice where they are and help them grow to, where they desire to be. And it's not me coming into a practice trying to change a practice. It's really tweaking and enhancing, what they already have established, because there obviously are many successful practices out there. But if they're needing to work on culture, if they're needing to work on the finances, marketing, personnel management, once again, I'll, look at the practice from that standpoint and determine, what should be the priority focus and assist them with, mapping that out.
And you're working, or you and Gary are working collectively with practices, new practices, established practices. It's across the board. Recently I was at a conference and I heard one of the speakers say something to the effect that you should be running your practice always like you're looking to sell it within 6 months. That's
Yep.
just have that mindset, because I think a lot of the practices that we see, they'll come to us and you know better than anybody. I think I'm gonna, I'm ready to, I'm tired, I'm frustrated, I'm ready to sell. When do you want it? I want it as soon as possible. That planning process, which
Yes.
you're talking about with Gary, from an operational standpoint, cultural standpoint, and financial standpoint, it is important throughout the life of the practice.
Exactly. Yes. And I remember, as I was being mentored and coached by Mark Opperman, working with clients, and it didn't matter, what their age was, especially if it was like a startup and someone, who was opening their first practice in their late 20s or early 30s. Mark would always say that regardless of when you open your practice, you should be thinking of your exit strategy and succession plan. So, how are things going to look in the next 5 years, down the road? Are you going to, want to sell the practice, extend partnership to an existing associate, just kind of knowing that there's some wonderful options out there, but you, like you said, need to think of one day having to, sell the practice, pass the baton, or whatever the case may be. And I think that's really important from the financial side of things, because, when we're working with, and I don't only work with Burzenski clients as a consultant, I can work with anyone that would want to utilize my services, but from the financial perspective, a lot of times when we're starting to work with clients, and no offense, but, garbage in is going to be garbage out. So if they do not have like the AHA chart of accounts set up, the way that we're interpreting and managing numbers, if things are not, set up appropriately, then it's the blind leading the blind. So it's very important that the historical data that will be used, to value the practice, that you're getting that information set up from jump, or as quickly as possible, versus some people, they're in their mid to late 60s and they're like, oh, now I want to exit. And it's like, you can't just do that overnight. I guess you could, but obviously if you plan, it will be much easier of a transition and a process to embark upon. So it's just not going to vet school, opening a practice and doing what you love. We help guide people being a part of their management team because they, are doing a better job of teaching management in vet schools. But there's still, some opportunities there. And I think because of that, I will be able to stay gainfully employed for many, many more years.
I think so. I think so. And I'm glad. Where do you see, this is just like obviously a common question. Where do you see the future of veterinary medicine going? I know, and I was just on the phone with a new client last night. I used the benchmark of January of 2023, at least for our practice. Before that, obviously, you had, consolidation, the onslaught of consolidation. The prior 3 years, a lot of our clients were just, selling to corporate. January 2023, seems a lot of them put their pens down. They took a breath. They got to onboard everybody. And yeah, sure, we're still doing a lot of work with practice owners selling to corporate. But I use the pendulum that shifted back to independent veterinarians, where a lot of our clients now are finding ways again to sell to an associate or an associates, where we weren't seeing a lot of that type of transition going on, 2-3 years ago. Where do you envision the practice of veterinary medicine going over the next 3 to 5 years?
Right. Well, consolidations, the major corporate consolidators, they're here to stay. If anything, I think that, it may be more of micro type scenarios that we're looking at, owners of veterinary hospitals in a particular area that are developing their own type of corporation so that they have a little more autonomy. But I think people have to understand, single owned practice or privately owned practices, consolidated corporate practices, there's a place for all of that in vet med. I think it just really has to be looked at from the DVM owner's perspective and what they're looking for. When you're getting ready to sell, are you selling because of lifestyle, changes, embarking upon retirement, or maybe you're in your 30s, but you don't want to have to, do everything on your own, and aligning with a consolidator will be one of those things to have, marketing resources, HR, general counsel, all those type things. And then if you're like, nope, I want to keep it to a point where I will carry on my legacy by allowing, an associate to buy in. The beauty of this industry is that there are options. I will say that I don't know if this is the correct analogy, but if you look at vet med from like the blockbuster days to now streaming, say Netflix,
Right.
that was reinvented, right? And I think that there's going to be a level that we have to reinvent ourselves because the industry is here to stay. I don't think that people tapped into that human-animal bond the way that we've been discussing it, for decades now until the pandemic. It is so powerful, the impact that pets have on our lives, that the industry is going to stay, but we've just got to find a better way to make it where culturally it's stronger. We have a lot of people that are committed to this profession, but I think we need to grow it in a way that it really is a career, not for just veterinarians. Obviously, being a CVPM, I'm always going to advocate for more certified veterinary practice managers in our industry. Debbie Boone, Rhonda Wright-Bell, and Dr. Jill Clark have launched NAVAR, which is an association to empower our veterinary receptionists. And then, of course, we have NAVTA for our credentialed technicians. It needs to be where, like in human medicine, you can go into human medicine. And if you're not a doctor, there are so many possibilities. And, you and I being members of Vet Partners, we know that there are veterinary exclusive CPAs, accountants, marketing individuals, IT individuals. So there are so many great opportunities within this industry. And I think that, those of us have been around a while, we need to get the message out there that there's so much that this industry can offer from a career, from a professional standpoint, that I hope that becomes more of the future of vet med, in addition to better utilizing our team, leveraging them as well as technology.
What if you can give one or two pieces of advice to one of your client or a potential client out there navigating today's challenges, what would it be? I know we talked about a lot of different challenges already.
Right. I think a lot of people have been in the rut that, the pandemic is this, the pandemic is that. But the pandemic, believe it or not, is going to be 4.5, almost 5 years ago that, 2020 was around. And although it feels like it was a decade ago,
right.
We can't use that as an excuse. Now, there was a legitimate excuse as to what we were thrown into, but I want my DVM owners and managers to be the beacon of hope for their practices. And, yes, that's a part of the history of vet med, but it doesn't have to be our legacy. We can look at how we came out of this and how, what we can do to build upon our being resilient. I think that practices need to do a better job of communication. I have always been an advocate for open book management. Thank goodness my former owner allowed me to have open book management with my team. People coming in every day, working for the practice, for the patients, the clients, and not knowing the ins and outs, the big picture of the practice. I think that's a disservice. You're letting them know what it takes to run the practice, from the expenses, what we need to do to make sure we're properly educating pet owners so that the pets are getting what they need. It's not to take advantage of clients, but understanding, most of the practices in veterinary medicine are for profit. And there's nothing wrong with being profitable, but we've got to make sure the team understands that. And when they understand your overhead cost per minute, when they understand that we're having to price, services and products this way, it's not like it's criminal. That's how businesses run and operate. And I think that once your team of kennel, receptionists, technicians, doctors understand that big picture, then it allows the team to work more harmoniously together, not only from the business standpoint, but most importantly for our patients and why we show up to work every day anyway. So,
right. And educating the clients, myself being a dog owner, I know when, we go to the vet, when my wife goes and she comes back, says, Dr. So-and-so said, you should do, great. I want to make sure my dog is as healthy as possible. So
yes.
I don't know the first thing about it. So I'm looking for their advice and I'm willing to pay for it. It's, and I think the practices need to understand, you're not looking to take advantage of your clients. You're just educating your clients on how to better take care of, your pets, which is going to be, beneficial to both your client and obviously the hospital too. So
education
Monica,
is key.
no doubt. Thank you for joining me today. Tell our listeners how they can find you.
Okay. Well, thank you, of course, Peter, for the invitation. Nice to always have the opportunity to interact with you. But people can reach out to me via email at monica@burzenski.com. And then the corporate office is located in Connecticut. They can reach out to the corporate office, or more than welcome to reach out to me directly at 919-262-4634.
Great.
I'm happy to help in any way I can.
And what the next conference you'll be at? I know in January you'll be down at DMX. You're speaking there?
Not speaking, but Gary and I have a bunch of meetings that we are planning and scheduling. I will be speaking at Western in Vegas in March. So, and then I have other speaking engagements lined up, but those two major conferences I will be at in 2025.
Well, I look forward to seeing you in person in January, and I know we'll talk before then, but thank you again.
Thank you very much.